Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Monday Musings-Danny Sports Watch. Good morning, ma'am, and isn't it a fine morning? I thought of that quote from Blazing Saddles, delivered by Cleavon Little as the Sheriff of Rock Ridge, when I thought about the fact that we had such a wonderful, smiley weekend as far as sports was concerned. Well, in the movie, of course, his comments to this withered-looking old lady who looked about as harmless as a fly was followed by a response from the woman that was, as many things in the movie were, wildly inappropriate and incredibly hysterical. Well, we haven't had much chance to share fine mornings, and we didn't have to get the response that Cleavon Little and Black Bart and the mayor of Rock Ridge got to do in that particular movie. Just made me think of it, and any time that I can look back on Blazing Saddles, it's a fine morning for me. Well, KU won, K-State won, Missouri won, Sporting won. Ever since the Chiefs won their Super Bowl about 5 weeks ago, we haven't had too many Monday mornings where we could think about a great deal of sports success. Usually that was reserved for Kansas. Sporting hadn't started playing yet. Things have been all miserable for Kansas State. They hadn't won since then, as a matter of fact. And Missouri's tale is more of a mixed bag. KU has the highlight note as far as basketball is concerned. They took the court on Saturday for the second half, knowing they had the league wrapped up, but still went out and won a grinder against Texas Tech, and that adds up to 17-1 in league play, and we'll touch on that significance a little bit later on. Missouri won their game at home against Alabama, and that meant they went 5-4 in the back half of the SEC conference season, and it also netted them a bye, the last one. You get a bye or a double bye in the SEC tournament, so that was a good thing for them. And, of course, these were all the final game. Kansas wasn't a senior night, but K-State was, Missouri was. Missouri only had Reed Nico as a significant senior to have as a focal point for their senior night. K-State had 3 seniors, and they all had their moments in one way or another, but the big night was reserved for Xavier Sneed as Kansas State snapped a 10-game losing streak. But I said last week on this particular segment that Sporting was reserved the right for the best performance, and they probably were again. As in their regular opener against Vancouver, they played fine soccer in a tight game on the road, and on Saturday night against Houston, they decimated the Dynamo, and they are looking like a real big factor in MLS this year, and we'll get an early judgment of that next weekend because they play Atlanta, a team that's been a powerhouse, obviously, since their inception in MLS. So on this fine morning, we'll talk a lot of sports here on Monday Musings, and we'll get it all started next. We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, you know, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Are you thinking of starting a new business? Does your current business feel stuck? Or are you just trying to grow what you already have? Running a business is a lot of work, and it takes the right team to make it all happen. If you're looking to grow your business, call my friends Ben and Greg over at Fuego Consulting. They put together a company that can help you reach your business goals. Whether you're looking to get online, build a social media strategy, or rebrand your business, they can help. Call Fuego at 816-663-9695 or visit them online at fuegoconsulting.com. Fuego Consulting. Let's grow your business together. We're visiting with Larry Marshall, former Chiefs defensive back and punt returner, and now a Chiefs ambassador. Larry is a former pro football player with the aches and pains that come with that, and moving on in age as we all are. What do the Canaway CBD products do for you?
It's been a great relief for me. Being a punt and kickoff returner, collisions were a mainstay of my career, and these Canaway products, the salve especially, has really helped me try to get through every day with the aches and pains that I've had over a career of 7+ years in the NFL.
I get similar benefits as well, particularly with my back. Certainly wasn't a football player. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information about the great products themselves?
Well, I'm so enthused about it, Dana. If they just contact me at larrymarshall.canaway.com, and I can give them all the information they need to help them get through the day as well.
Start gaining all the benefits that Larry and I do from the trusted and reliable line of Canaway products. As Larry said, visit larrymarshall.canaway.com and get information on all the great products from Canaway.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome back to Monday Musings, Danny Sports Watch, and let's start off with college basketball. And KU, a championship in hand as they played the second half, still went out and won their game, just about ensuring is probably about as passively away as you can state that Kansas will be the overall number one seed. I don't even think a first-round loss in the Big 12 tournament would have anything to do with that. 17-1 for their championship. That is the first time since the Kansas team in 2009-10 won all but one conference game, and it's the first time anybody's done it since they went to the double round robin. A great accomplishment at 17-1. Of course, the only loss came at home, and the other thing that makes that significant, obviously, if you just heard those words, is the fact that Kansas went undefeated on the road, a reflection of their fine play and a reflection of the fact that some of the home courts in the Big 12 that normally are really daunting featured teams that were down like Iowa State. So Kansas, every reason in the world to be proud of what they have accomplished as far as their team this year, and the sky is wide open for them as far as the opportunities that they have in front of them. It will be interesting to see how they will handle the Big 12 tournament with players slightly dinged up, like Udoka Azubuike, obviously, and Marcus Garrett. So I think they will probably play it regularly. They did so against Texas Tech. It was a game that they needed, I guess, but they certainly could have stepped back on the gas in the second half after they knew they had won the championship outright when Baylor lost to West Virginia. They did not. They have two of the finest players in America. It was probably good for Bill Self to see one of his role players who hadn't been doing much as far as scoring was concerned, and Ochai Agbaji have a good game as well. You get the usual performances from Azubuike and Dotson, and Kansas looks like a real powerhouse heading into the tournament. When I visited with Seren Petro on Danny Unleashed on Friday, I said I would probably give Kansas about a 10% chance to win the NCAA championship. 40% is real high. I think Kansas was 14% when they won the national championship. Now, I think the Kansas Jayhawks are the favorite to win the NCAA title, but the thing is that they are a team that is short as far as their roster is concerned. Depth isn't as important in the NCAA tournament, but I think there are a lot of good teams in NCAA basketball this year, and I think some of those teams are lurking in the Big East and Big Ten, two conferences that were really, really competitive this year, and there are teams that lost quite a few games during the course of the season in those leagues that are ranked in the bottom of the top 25 despite all those losses, and I think those teams are dangerous. So I think there's maybe more teams that are capable of beating a flawed team like Kansas, but I still tab Kansas the favorite. But 10% is not bad. As I said, if you're a 14% shot at winning the championship the year you did it, and the highest that's ever been since they started doing these type of things is Kentucky at 42%, and they didn't win the tournament that year. That's a pretty good deal. Of course, the weekend started for Kansas with their response to NCAA allegations, very aggressive. I don't think anybody's opinion as to what they held before is changed by what Kansas did. My whole thought in this entire process is that when people talk about this case and they talk about it individually, I don't think you can separate it from the fact that there has to be some thought by anyone who gives an opinion on this as to what they want college basketball to be. And do they want the players to be paid exorbitant sums of money? Do they want them to be basically semi-professionals, or really basically just low-level professionals playing with Kansas or Kentucky or Duke across the front of their uniform? Or do they want them to be some semblance of a student athlete? And I think, and maybe, I don't think I'm a Pollyanna in this regard. There's always been problems with college basketball. There have always been under-the-table dealings. There's always been players' parents who have been given coaching jobs and things like that. But I think the overall aspect of it has accelerated significantly in the last few years. And I think that you either go one way and throw your hands up and say, well, that's the way it's going to be, and make it kind of professional basketball, basically with a logo for a university on the front of somebody's uniform. Or, and this has to start with the NBA, you just allow anybody who wants to play play professional basketball to do it as soon as they want. If it's 14 years old and they want to sign a contract with an NBA team, and what it probably would take is a multi-level minor league system in the NBA, but players have opportunities to overseas, and they just have to take away the one-year carrot to start. And then if the top 30, 40, 50, maybe more, depending on how much professional basketball there was out there available, players are off the table, then I think you can at least try to maintain a system of some amateurism. Perhaps that is a bit pie in the sky. There's all kinds of money in the NCAA championships and in college basketball, but there are things that people have to wait for in their lives anyway. There might be somebody who has the chance to be a great chemist, and his chemistry professor might be making very good money at the university, but he has to learn from that chemistry professor before he can go out and make real money. If somebody's going to offer that said chemistry student $500,000, then he can take it, and people do make that analogy, but probably that person does not exist. And I think that's my whole thought about what this is, and maybe it sounds vague or obtuse or whatever. It's just, what do you want college basketball to look like? I think in this regard, some people just are saying, let's be realistic. Let's let the players make money off their likenesses. Other people, like Kansas fans, they just care to see their school exonerated from this particular crime, and that's all they really care about right now. And I don't know if they care about the structure of college basketball. They just want Kansas to not be found guilty, maybe not have a championship or a Final Four taken down, and I think they just like to sort of blind their eye to the way college basketball is being operated right now, and go to senior night and listen to the speeches and everything else. So I think that's for somebody else to decide for themselves what they want college basketball to look like. I guess I'd like to have it look more like what originally sports in college were designed to be. As I said, maybe that is pie in the sky and Pollyanna, but if you take the professional aspect out of it and make it more like college baseball, which I think is slightly possible, especially if there was a bigger minor league for the NBA, then I think that would actually create something that people try to pretend that actually exists now, but which really doesn't. And I think people feel the best about college basketball probably on the last weekend of the regular season because of the senior nights, because of players being honored. Although I think Kansas's senior night is kind of reflected by the fact that you had a player in Udoka Azubuike who spent his entire career at Kansas, and Kansas fans loved him, and he played great, and he made the speech and everything. And then you had a graduate transfer like Isaiah Moss, who basically was around for 8 months and had his senior night at Kansas when he played his entire career for Iowa. And that's another issue for another day. Let's move on to Missouri, and their trend as the season went on was better. Their season was looking like it might be headed down the road of Kansas State's at one point in time, but then they sort of righted the ship. This was more like a ship that was headed for the rocks that ended up being able to sail very slowly through murky waters the rest of the way. As I mentioned in the outset, they were 5-4 in their last back half of the SEC conference play. Not bad. They had lost a couple straight games before they came into the Alabama game. That big win at home was nice for them, and they do get the bye, so they don't have to play an extra game, and I guess they can dream a little bit more of making a run in the SEC tournament. If they're to win their game against Texas A&M in the first game, which is already set, they don't have to wait for, or they don't have to see who the winner is of another game. They know their opponent for that second-round game, and then they would take on Auburn if they were to win that, as Auburn has the double bye. So maybe another moment or two in the season to make Missouri fans feel good. Maybe with the wins that they have now, they'll be playing some postseason basketball besides the SEC tournament. We'll have to wait and see. Certainly Kansas State won't be playing postseason basketball, and their season came to an end, and thankfully it came to an end with a nice evening, or a nice afternoon at Bramlage Coliseum, as they took on Iowa State, beat Iowa State, and there were a couple of really nice stories on senior night, one of them from Pearson McAfee, somebody who hadn't played very much for Kansas State, to say the least, and because DeJuan Gordon texted Bruce Weber, who usually doesn't change the starting lineup to feature seniors like many coaches do, changed his mind a little bit and let McAfee in, and he played career high in minutes and actually played significant basketball for him. He played 26 minutes in the game, had a dunk early in the game, and so that was a nice story. And Xavier Sneed, who had so many great moments at Kansas State, but now is presiding as the leader over the team that set the season record for losses for Kansas State, had a 31-point night. He had his career high set by the time halftime rolled around, and so it was a fun night for him. The other senior was McCall Mayween, and he didn't have a very good game, but still he was part of a win, and his 4 years as Sneed's did really featured some big moments in Kansas State basketball history. K-State will move on to take on TCU in the Big 12 tournament, and you don't have any sense that K-State's going to make any noise there, but their season is still ticking until whenever the clock ticks down on a loss in the Big 12 tournament. Very disappointing season for Bruce Weber, and that makes next season become important because we talked about it a lot during the course of this season. If Bruce Weber had even backed up his Big 12 championship year with a mediocre season, then I think that next year would be one that would not hold a significant amount of pressure. Now I think there has to be significant improvement next year because this was a miserable season, and he at times seemed to have lost his team, and there were some bad losses there, and there was some on-the-court visible acrimony between himself and at least one player. So not a good season for K-State, but at least they get to hang their hat on a memorable senior night for a couple of their guys and a win that snapped a 10-game losing streak. Sporting Kansas City, unbelievably impressive in their game. We'll talk about that. And a story from golf that I think holds some lessons, I guess, or makes me quizzical, maybe for the 8 millionth time, about some people's use of social media. All that comes your way next on Monday Musings. That's Danny Sports Watch, right here at the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast at DannyClinkscale.com.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Hey guys, it's Brian Haney, voice of the Jayhawks, and Matt Llewellyn from the 23rd Street Brewery. Matt, I've got a bunch of buddies coming over to watch the big game, and I need some ideas on what to cook.
Hey, let me handle it, Brian.
You're going to come over and cook for us?
For you? Maybe. But you should just let 23rd Street Brewery cater it. We could bring a big pan of Bill Self mac and cheese, wings, veggies, naked nachos, and anything else you might want.
Great. Well, you want to stick around and watch the game?
No, I've got to get back to the brewery and watch it on the big screen.
The place to get great catering and watch all the games, the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. My friends at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture are among the most accomplished and trusted clinics in the nation. Only one clinic has been rated in the top 5 in all 3 categories of chiropractic care, acupuncture, and rehabilitation, and that clinic is ASFCA. They have locations in Olathe, Overland Park, Prairie Village, Belton, and Lee Summit. Doctors Brad and Christina Woodle and their accomplished team of doctors and therapists will treat you like family, for the simplest of injuries to the most complicated conditions to avoid surgery. Whether you are seeking treatment for an injury or just looking to stay healthy and fit, this is the place for you. And it's been the place for me for almost 2 years now. I have been a strenuous daily exerciser for years, and as time goes on, that takes its toll. But regular appointments at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture have helped keep me ticking on, and even as the years pile up, their regular care has allowed me to keep to my regimen and feel great. If you want to feel the same, give them a call or visit them at asfca.com/Danny. They accept all insurances and are open Monday through Saturday, and make sure to mention that Danny Clinkscale recommended Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyClinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Welcome back to Danny Sports Watch, and it was a big night at Children's Mercy Park on Saturday night. I had previewed the game on Wednesday with our Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday look at some of the menu additions at Children's Mercy Park and setting the menu with Peter Vermees for the home opener against the Houston Dynamo. And Peter Vermees, a coach who is hard to please, couldn't help but be like a proud father after the game, a 4-0 win over the Houston Dynamo. Sporting was dominant from start to finish, turning Houston's high press, extreme high press, into basically a joke and rollicking with a couple of goals before halftime, a couple of goals after halftime. And once again, Alan Pulido and Gadi Quinto were big factors as far as this game was concerned, as Pulido again scored a goal, and again scored a goal that only true strikers score, as he curled one just inside the post from a reasonable distance, almost stealing the ball from Johnny Russell after a good feed from Kinda. Kinda scored himself. A couple of other goals after halftime. Kyrie Shelton getting into the mix as well. And Sporting looked like a team that can do this a lot. Now, we will get an instant test of where they're at, because Houston isn't a very good team, and Vancouver wasn't a very good team last year, but still winning as solidly in 3-1 fashion on the road as they did at Vancouver, and then just totally obliterating Houston in the game. It was just a start-to-finish party at Children's Mercy Park. Indicates that this team has confidence, they have swagger, and more importantly, they have dudes out there, and these new players in the mix with some of the old and familiar faces at Sporting Kansas City make this look like a completely new squad. A lot of the things that you've seen in MLS the last couple of years have indicated troubling things for a franchise like Sporting Kansas City. New teams that have come into the league have spent a lot of money. You see huge crowds at places like Nashville with their new team coming in, and, of course, Atlanta, and big expenditures, and expenditures that Sporting just can't make. Well, they went out and made a big one, big by their standards, still big by MLS standards, in signing Pulido, a very big contract, and they're not going to do that with 3 designated players, say, as a team like Los Angeles might, but what we've seen is that these teams that are spending a lot are the teams that are winning. Since Sporting won that championship, the big spenders of the league, the high-priced teams, the teams with the huge stadiums and the huge attendance have been the ones that have had the most success in MLS, and Sporting seemed like maybe they were going to have to be fighting a trend somewhat like the Kansas City Royals in baseball. Well, the landscape isn't still quite that different in MLS, at least for the time being, and Sporting Kansas City looks every bit in a position to buck that particular trend. As I said, a game against Atlanta on the road this Saturday will provide a real good view of things, but not only is Sporting winning these 2 games to start the season, but one thing that's been a narrative for Sporting Kansas City forever has been the fact that even in their championship year, they were a team that would create a whole bunch of opportunities and not cash many of them. They'd get 20 shots or 8 shots on goal and score 1 or something like that. If you have a true killer striker like Pulido, he's going to convert those chances, and he's going to convert ones that aren't even as likely. Both of his goals so far this year were ones that, if he had not scored on the opportunity presented to him, there would have been no disappointment whatsoever. It wouldn't have been, oh, that was a nice little opportunity. It was too hard to expect him to score that goal. But one on a very precise and difficult header, and one on the curling shot that anything but a perfect shot just inside the post would have been stopped by the keeper. I mean, these are things that you can't count on each and every game, but those are the difference between a 1-1 draw and a 2-1 win, and losing a game and getting a draw, getting a result out of it. And not only is Pulido there to be the person to put it away, but Kinda and others seem to be the ones to set things up, and they still have quality in players like Johnny Russell. They still have a fine goalkeeper in Tim Melia. They still have the opportunity to perhaps shore up the defense, and they've played very well on defense so far with 1 clean sheet and one goal allowed. So nothing but smiles. First, I started off this podcast by saying, isn't it a fine morning? Well, wasn't it a fine evening at Children's Mercy Park? Back to a huge crowd, over 21,000, biggest for an opener after last year their sellout streak was ended. And it seems like the excitement at Sporting Kansas City, not only from result, but from quality of play and excitement level, will be back for Peter Vermeer's squad. The only downer note from this past week in sports for me is just something that's just so hard to understand what people are thinking about. And in this regard, I'll start off by saying that you probably don't know that much about who Scott Piercy is. Maybe the first time you ever heard his name was this week, because he was dropped by 3 of his sponsors because he basically retweeted or shared on Instagram a meme that was deprecating towards Pete Buttigieg, the presidential candidate, an openly gay presidential candidate who dropped out of the race. And he shared it on his Instagram account and also made reference to a far right-wing organization as well that's been targeted by the FBI. And so Titleist, his equipment company and ball company, and FootJoy, his shoe company, now they're owned by the same company, so it's kind of the same thing. And then Jay Lindbergh, who's an apparel company, they all dropped their accounts for him. And you know what? Rightly so. He's representing their product, and there's just no reason for this. I don't even understand it. And because you probably don't know who Scott Piercy is, although he's won 4 times on the PGA Tour and has made millions of dollars, and I'm not going to cry for him. He can go find another sponsor, or even if he doesn't really need one. But the fact that you would just even consider doing this and making fun of someone in this day and age for their preferences, it's just hard to fathom. And even if you truly feel that way, and I bet he does, Scott Piercy sort of strikes you as a tough guy, rough guy, macho man type of guy when he's striding around the golf course. And apparently he does carry that type of attitude with his buddies or whatever. What are you thinking? And he's not, part of the point I'm getting to is he's not like a millennial. He's 40-something years old. What in the world are you doing? I don't get it. I own my own business now. I operate my own business. Anybody who's listened to me through the years probably has an idea of where my political leanings would reside. But it doesn't make any sense if you're trying to operate a business, which he basically is when he's extolling the virtues of the products of his sponsors, like Titleist, like FootJoy, and like Jay Lindbergh. You're going to make a certain large segment of the fan base or the base that you're trying to pitch your products to upset. Just shut up. What's the need? What is the need? People just can't help themselves. And you can just have fun with Instagram. And I guess this was his idea of fun. Well, he paid the price, and then he comes out and he says, I'm sorry I offended. What? Well, you did offend, so don't do it in the first place. And social media can be a lot of fun for people, and it's a great insight for us into the world of these athletes, and it's a great insight into the world of these athletes because they're stupid enough to do stuff like this. Unbelievable. So now Scott Piercy basically will be known as the guy who threw away millions of dollars in endorsement contracts for a bad joke and one that he had to know. I mean, he had to know. Just what's the saying that they always say, pause for 30 seconds or a minute before you hit send? I mean, look at what you're doing. Maybe he had 8 beers. I don't know. Who's to say? But anyway, Scott Piercy gets his just desserts for this and gets himself in the news for all the wrong reasons. And now every time he goes and plays golf, that's pretty much the only thing that people are going to be thinking about a really good, solid professional golfer who's really was before that probably a very underrated player. 4 wins on the PGA Tour is awful good. Ricky Fowler has 5 of them, for crying out loud, and I just don't understand it. I don't understand, and so to all of you prospective athletes out there or anybody, just pause. Pause before you hit send. What are you getting out of it? So anyway, not too bad for Scott Piercy. I was about to say too bad for Scott Piercy. He gets what he deserved, and I'll end up scratching my head about this one and probably another one next week and another one the week after that. Well, next week and the week after that, I'll be back with Monday Musings, Danny Sports Watch, and mostly this is a fine morning because we had a lot of smiles in the world of sports. Let's hope we have a few of these Mondays coming up through the course of the spring and summer.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.